Every place has a story. Some stories refuse to stay buried. In Quezon City, Manila, there is a street that locals will drive around rather than drive through. It is not long. It is not hidden. It is not, by daylight, particularly frightening. Old acacia trees lean over the asphalt, their branches knitted together so tightly that even at noon the road wears a kind of twilight. Houses sit behind tall gates, dogs bark at nothing, and the street has a name that, if you say it after midnight in the wrong company, will make conversation stop. Balete Drive. For more than 70 years, drivers have reported the same impossible passenger. A woman in a long white dress, hair black, wet, hanging over her face. Sometimes she stands at the roadside. Sometimes she is already inside the car. And sometimes, when the driver finally finds the courage to look in the rearview mirror, he sees that she has no face at all. Tonight, we walk down Balete Drive, slowly, with the windows up. To understand the haunting, you must understand the place. Balete Drive takes its name from the balete tree, a strangler fig native to the Philippines. In Filipino folklore, the balete is not simply a tree. It is a doorway. Encantos, diwatas, capres, tikbalangs, the unseen residents of the spirit world, are said to make their homes inside its tangled roots. To cut a balete without asking permission is to invite misfortune. To build a road through a corridor of them is, according to the old beliefs, to drive a wound through the skin between worlds. In the 1930s, that is exactly what was done. As Manila expanded into the new Manila district, wealthy families built grand Spanish-style homes along the new avenue. The balete trees were left standing, partly for shade, partly because no one wanted to be the one who took the axe. The street became fashionable. Then came the war. During the Japanese occupation of Manila from 1942 to 1945, New Manila was not spared. Many of the elegant houses along Balete Drive were seized. Witnesses spoke in whispers that survived the war of women taken into those houses and never seen again. When the Americans returned and the city burned in the Battle of Manila in 1945, more than 100,000 civilians died. Bodies were left where they fell. Some, the older residents will tell you, were left beneath the balete trees. It is after the war that the stories begin. The first widely told account comes from the late 1940s. A taxi driver, finishing his shift before dawn, turns onto Balete Drive. The street is empty. Then, in his headlights, a woman. White dress, long black hair. He slows. She does not flag him down. She simply walks into the back seat as if she had been waiting there all along. He never heard the door open. He never heard it close. In the mirror, he asks where she is going. She does not answer. He asks again. And when he finally turns his head to look at her directly, the face beneath the hair is not a face. It is smooth, featureless, wet. He runs from the cab on foot and leaves the engine running. The taxi is found the next morning. The back seat is soaked through as if someone had been sitting there in the rain. That story, in one form or another, has been told by Manila taxi drivers ever since. By the 1950s, it had a name, the White Lady of Balete Drive. Newspapers printed it. Radio shows dramatized it, and the more the city grew around her, the more often she appeared. Who was she in life? There is no single answer, and that, perhaps, is part of why she will not rest. The most common version says she was a young woman, a student, walking home along Balete Drive late at night when she was struck by a speeding car. The driver did not stop. She was left beneath the acacias to die slowly, alone, her white dress soaking through. Another version says she was attacked, not by a car, but by a man. Some say a soldier during the occupation. Some say a wealthy man from one of the great houses, whose family paid to keep the story quiet. In every version, Two details remain. She was young, and no one came for her. The dead remember who left them. By the 1970s, Balete Drive had become a kind of pilgrimage for the brave and the foolish. Teenagers would drive its length at 3 in the morning, daring her to appear. Tricycles refused fares headed that way after dark. Older taxi drivers, the ones who had been on the road long enough to have stories of their own, developed a quiet rule. If you must drive Balete Drive at night, drive with someone in the passenger seat. She does not appear, they said, when the seat is already full. A driver in the 1980s reported this. He was alone, going north along Balete Drive at around 2 in the morning. He felt the car shift, the way a car shifts when weight settles into the back. He did not look. He kept his eyes on the road and began to pray. The Lord's Prayer, in Tagalog. Ama namin, sumasalangit ka. He felt cold breath against the back of his neck. He kept praying. Sambahin ang ngalan mo. The cold deepened. He could see his own breath now, inside the car, in tropical Manila, in the middle of summer. He finished the prayer. The cold lifted. When he reached the end of the street and pulled over, shaking, he turned around. The back seat was empty. But on the leather, in the perfect shape of a seated woman, was a wet outline that smelled faintly of flowers, and of something older, something like soil. The accounts accumulate. A jeepney driver who saw her standing in the middle of the road and swerved into a tree, surviving with broken ribs and a story he would tell for the rest of his life. A young couple who picked her up, believing her to be a stranded student, and watched her dissolve in the back seat as they drove. A police officer off duty who pursued what he thought was a woman in distress, only to find her standing inside the gates of a house that had been condemned for 40 years. The houses themselves carry their own weight. Several of the grand old mansions along Balete Drive have stood empty for decades. Caretakers describe lights moving from window to window, crying heard from upper floors. One famous property, said by some to be the very house where she died, has changed hands again and again, each owner leaving sooner than the last. The city has tried, in its way, to manage her. Traffic patterns have been adjusted, street lights brightened, new construction has crept up to the edges of the old avenue. None of it has stopped the sightings. If anything, the more Manila modernizes around Balete Drive, the more out of place she seems, and the more clearly the witnesses describe her. There is one detail that the oldest drivers share only reluctantly. They say she is not always behind you. Sometimes, when you check the mirror and the back seat is empty, you should not feel relief. Check the passenger seat. Check it slowly. Because there are nights, they say, when she does not want to be a passenger. There are nights when she wants to ride beside you, to watch your hands on the wheel, to see your face as you understand, finally, that you are not driving home. You are driving her. And she has been waiting a long, long time for someone to take her the rest of the way. Cultural historians point out that the White Lady is not unique to Balete Drive. Variants of her appear across Asia, the Pontianak in Malaysia, the Kuchisake Onna in Japan, the Nugui in China. Each is, in some sense, a woman wronged. A woman who died with something unfinished. The Philippines has many of them. But the one on Balete Drive is the one Manila cannot forget. Perhaps because the road is still there. Perhaps because the trees are still there. Perhaps because she is. If you have ever driven down Balete Drive or heard a story from someone who did, leave a single in the comments. The Archivist reads each one, and some names once spoken become easier to find. Sleep well, if you can.